Welcome to Help 100 Schools. As a professional in education dedicated to expanding enrollment, you're already a fundamental part of this movement. We are here together to amplify the positive ripple effect that comes from advancing education. We're committed to keeping listeners inspired with timely lessons, valuable stories, and insights from brilliant minds and dedicated hosts. Our mission is a collective effort. Together, let's make a difference in spirit and in action to help 100 schools grow.
All right. Wherever you are today, welcome to the very first episode of Help 100 Schools. I am your host, Karl Boehm, the founder and chief growth strategist over at Everest Private School Growth Group, which is a digital marketing and communications service provider to independent schools across the country. I've had the pleasure to help schools grow for over 10 years now, and today I am joined by my colleague and co-host, Rich Suttie. Rich has served in roles across the expanse of education, including governance, private and faith-based K-12 schools, undergraduate and graduate education. He started teaching as an instructor pilot in the US Navy. Yes, like Top Gun. And before going into private education administration, he ended his Navy career as an assistant dean and professor researching in the area of institutional leadership and advancement. Together, we aim to provide you with a series of engaging episodes on what we are calling the private school moment. What it is, how to leverage it, and how to make it last for your school. Stay with us over the course of the next few episodes to go over the major trends in private school education, the significant opportunities, and the challenges with some of the most effective resources and practices we have seen to grow and shape your school in ways that preserve and strengthen your learning culture, your identity, your value, and your resiliency over time. On with today's episode. How are you doing, Rich?
It's another day in paradise, big guy. Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure. Thank you. So it is the moment.
Yeah, it really is. I know you and I have talked about it, and I'm going to guess a lot of our listeners have been discussing it as well, particularly now that it's summertime and there's a little time to do some reflection. Even now, 3 years, removed from COVID and the pandemic, this is definitely what I would call the private school moment.
Absolutely. I have been hearing schools talk about the frustrations in the public school sector for a long time now. As you said, over the last 3 years, it's just, prevalent. And there's even more to it, of course. How have you been talking to some of your schools about it?
Yeah, across the country, and with my background, I've been able to cross the country, several states. I've had schools, led schools, and been a part of schools, consulted schools. So I do have a network, and there's some commons here, right? And the common is the renewed demand signal. And they're all seeing the same thing, I guess at varying levels, but nonetheless, a demand signal. And we've boiled it down to maybe 7 major causes. So yes, the results of the public school over time, not exactly world class. There are excellent and outstanding schools in pockets, but across the board, even in good locations, much less in the inner city and other challenging places, the results are less than good. Our report just came out, Karl, just 2 days ago that said 34% of the nation's fourth graders are reading at and doing math both at grade level. And across our government schools. And I know there are challenges, but that's a big gap. That's a big miss.
A full grade level behind. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Is that what you saw?
And again, we know that they're going to talk to that specifically about the COVID experience and the learning loss in 2020 and 2021. But we know that it goes, and parents know, frankly, that it goes far deeper. And there are many, many more challenges. But yes, COVID number one on the list to the demand signal that we're seeing now is the transparency that we saw when school came into our living room in 2020 and school came into our living room in 2021 even. And that was the first time parents couldn't just do drop off. that they had to be a part of the school process. So when school came into the living room, parents were able to see the classroom. And parents in public schools don't go see the classroom. And they're not part of school board meetings normally. And they're not part of the process. And school is something that's trusted. It's trusted to do the right thing and to accomplish the right goals in education, academic goals. And so when it came into the living room, that was one of the key moments for the private school sector, because it was, we talk about differentiation. Well, that was differentiation. And it was something that creates this demand signal. The relationship, I'd say number two, Karl, is the relationship that next came between school boards. The school board and parents clashed quite significantly over the last 2 years in what is to be done post-COVID. How do we recover? What are the next steps? What's happening in the schools? What didn't we like? What did we like? And they learned that the school board in the government system is there to serve the state and state standards first, and not really the parent. Whereas the private school is there to serve the parent, the family, the student. And so another key differentiation, we go on down the list of what the demand signal is during this private school moment, and we see not only the outcomes, but then the social agenda. And it's not that the social agenda is good, bad, or otherwise. It's that I think most parents that I've talked to and most school systems are reporting that the problem is the social agenda, the values-based educational agenda in the public government school is displacing the academic achievement agenda. There's only so much time in the day, Karl. You and I are both parents, and so we know that anything you put in that 50-minute or longer class period, it displaces learning in the fundamentals and learning for the learning outcomes and objectives. So those are some of the demand signal key factors, and they in part create what we're calling this private school moment.
I think that last one is, they're all very interesting, of course. Could we expand on that last note just a little bit? I think maybe
there's so much
story to crystallize it.
There's so much to unpack there. So it's not one thing or another, but it crosses over in terms of a social or values-based agenda. It crosses over the challenges that we're having with race relations. It crosses over the challenge we're having, obviously, with the gender identity aspects, and that encroaching. I think the big challenge is that it's going from high school to middle school, and now it's evident in elementary schools. Of course, that's what you're seeing in Florida play out and other states. So governors are having to weigh in above school boards because the typical school board is resistant to take action. And so that's a big problem. And generally the private school sector, whether you're certainly if you're faith-based, but even if you're not faith-based, the classroom learning environment, and I'll call it a discipline, has proven to be more focused than that on, we really don't have a lot of time and every minute is precious. And we really need a disciplined classroom learning environment moving forward that isn't going to bring that in. And we'll let that play out however we want to have it play out. Maybe the parents get to choose more than the school how that plays out, but outside the classroom. And that's the key.
I see. Thank you. Very helpful. All righty. Well, where do we go from here? Or rather, more importantly, where does the school go from here?
Yeah, so if you're in a private school today and it's summer 2023, congratulations. You've withstood 2.5, 3 years of crisis management. And that has been a challenge. And you've withstood it. Now you're taking a breath in 2023, but there's only about 8 weeks left. I'm sorry to tell you that you're going to be back in the classroom. You're going to be preparing the classroom. You're going to be coming back to school meetings. You're going to be getting the new technology in place. and it all begins again. And so we know that. You're also probably taking that breath and doing a little bit of catch up, right? And so you're looking at what's going on across the nation and how that might influence you. And probably one of the next key drivers that you need to become smart on, and I know we're going to have some discussions in the future, you and I, Karl, about this in very much specifics and provide the resources for, but that's school choice. School choice right now is on the march. And what I mean by school choice is it's the government changing the rules. And there are many ways to change those rules, but they're changing the rules such that parents are not, A, limited by the zip code that they live in to put their or place their students in school. That's some of it. And perhaps even more significantly than that is that the government is now willing, and the Supreme Court has supported this, is now willing to use public funds, allow parents to use public funds to pay for private schools. There's various programs. States are either using one, another, or all of the above in those programs. But collectively, this is a trend, and it's coming fast. And it's going to be, now it's in 25 states. It's going to be in 27 states or more next year. And states where it isn't today are already introducing legislation that could change the game for private schools going forward. So that is a huge, huge change. And I commend private school leaders, administrations, and boards to carefully look at what's happening in their state. And for those that have it or have had it, like Arizona, Indiana, Florida, et cetera, where it's been for a few years now, they already know this. But if you don't have it yet, it's probably coming, and you probably should get real smart on it.
Right. It's huge change, huge opportunity, of course. And from a growth and marketing perspective, I think that there's a huge opportunity for education in terms of the student families who may not know that it's an option. They may not know how to leverage that as an option.
Yeah, and the private schools, I've seen this happen already, and I've been a part of it in Arizona. The private schools are going to have to be the educator. Parents, just like you at school, are busy. And this is a fast-moving game. And you really need to dedicate at least half a person, if not more, to research this and report on it with regularity, because the rules are changing and the opportunities are coming fast. And so where I've seen this managed successfully and implemented successfully is it is certainly a big part of back to school week. It's a lesson or a session that's set apart all to this subject alone. It's not buried across all the other back to school subjects, immunizations and whatever else you've got to go through. And it's all the forms and all the materials are presented, and parents get educated. And so that's something that, again, we've got resources that we'll be adding into future chats and on your website and in future podcasts. So I hope we can help provide some of those resources, kind of one-stop shopping.
Absolutely. We'll go ahead and get some resources up on help100schools.com for folks. We'll find some links and add those there so that there can be an immediate reference for any listener. So I'll make sure to get those up. And I really wanted to give everybody sort of an initial introduction, and then we can keep people moving in on their day because everybody's busy. So shall we? What would you like to say, and how shall we segue to the next? Next continuation of the moment.
So we're definitely in the private school moment. So that means there's opportunities and threats. And with opportunities and threats, you need to go through both and very soberly. We can get excited about the opportunities, but if we ignore the threats to this moment as well, and they're coming, we're not prepared. And as you mentioned in your opening, what you and I hope to help schools with is growth, but a shaped sort of growth that's intentional, because that's the smartest growth, and a growth that understands the opportunity but mitigates the threats and then produces a school that's resilient. And so no matter what happens, the school's kind of ready for it. And a crisis, yeah, it's a crisis, but it's not the crisis that others face. So I'm proposing that in our next session, we run down the opportunities of the private school moment, and there are several for schools to consider. And certainly one of them is to strengthen the marketing, enrollment, admission funnel, that process that they have because parents are looking in numbers that we haven't seen in a long, long time. And we know now that that's going to persist. And for lots of those reasons we described earlier, along with school choice, that opens the door, makes private education much more affordable. So I know we can help there. That's the sweet spot, but there's about 5 or 6 places that we're going to share in our next podcast that are other opportunities that we hope private schools are taking advantage of. And then, Karl, I'm suggesting another session dedicated to the threats so that schools can build that resiliency.
Outstanding. Well, stay tuned, everyone. And thank you, Rich. If you, the listener, would like to discuss any aspect of how to better position and market your school for growth and retention for the good families that you have now, I would be happy to chat with you and go over what you might consider for your marketing, promotion, and communications, operational, and strategic plans. We have a portfolio of options that can equip and train your staff, assess your current posture, and improve your messaging to prospective families, current families, and alumni. We can meet virtually on any budget with programs that are short-term or long-term engagements. You can find us at www.help100schools.com. We appreciate you being an active listener here as well, and applaud what you are doing for educating our next generation in America. Have a great week.
Thank you much.
We are grateful for your support of the Help 100 Schools movement. Thank you for listening and for showing up. Now please help us multiply the impact by reviewing, sharing, commenting, and staying engaged with us and our mission to help 100 schools grow. The future of education is in your hands. To learn more about today's topics, how to be more involved, and how to access our free resources designed to aid in your own mission, go to help100schools.com.